We're going to discuss the erythrocyte, or RBC cell morphology. Before reporting any red blood cell morphology, you want to scan 10 microscopic fields in different areas of the side with evenly dispersed RBCs and 100 X fields. In other words, put your microscope on oil immersion and scan and count 10 different fields. You are looking for areas that are not too thin and not too thick. These are examples of areas that are just right. We say where the cells are touching but not overlapping. When we're discussing RBC morphology, we think in terms of normocytes, microcytes, and macrocytes. And we're going to discuss how we determine what is a normocyte, a microcyte, or a macrocyte. When we look at this slide, we see that we can find a normal small lymphocyte and use it to help us to determine the size of the red cell. This is a stained blood picture with right stain. We are noticing that we have the measurements of each of the red blood cells on this picture, several of the red blood cells, and they're reading from about 6.47 to about 7.154. These are all normal because we know that a red blood cell is normally about 7 microns. As a med tech, you have to report RBC morphology. Ask yourself, are these normocytes or not? How can we identify normocyte? It means normal in size. Think about the size of an RBC. A normal size is between 6.2 and 8.2. As we said, with an average of 7 microns. As you can see, all of the ones that we have measured fall between the 6.2 and the 8.2. So these would be considered normal size. You can also see that the ones that aren't measured are approximately the same size. How do we measure the diameter under the microscope? We can think about a comparative scale because we're going to be comparing the lymphocyte, the nucleus of the lymphocyte, with the diameter of the red blood cell. And we can also check our indices. Remember, MCV tells us about the size of the cell. Normal MCV is between 80 and 96. Are they all similar in size? Not really, but they are normal in size, or a normocyte. Red blood cells are different, but no more than 10 cells are less than 6.2 or higher than 8.2. And most of them have a diameter that is closer to the diameter of the nucleus of the small lymphocyte. So the average diameter of this particular blood smear is 7.2, and that gives us an MCV of 91, which is normal. Now let's talk about microcytosis. Here you can see that most of the RBCs are less than 6 microns in diameter, and some are even less than 5 microns, because microcytes mean abnormally small erythrocytes. Before reporting microcytosis, count the number of microcytic cells that you see using 10 microscopic fields of evenly dispersed red cells in your oil immersion lens. You would get the total, divide by 10. If you have less than 10 that are small cells, they would be called normocytes. If you have 10 to 20, an average of 10 to 20 per each fill, that would be 1 plus microcytosis. 20 to 30 2 plus microcytosis. Greater than 30 would be 3 plus microcytosis. Then you want to check the MCV. If the MCV is less than 65 femtoliters, we're going to expect to see marked microcytosis, or 3 plus. Moderate microcytosis would fall anywhere between 66 and 75 femtoliters for our MCV. And we would expect to see about 2 plus. For slight microcytosis, you would expect to see an MCV of between 74 to 80 femtoliters. When we see microcytosis or microcytic cells, we want to think about the kind of diseases that can cause this. And it's mainly associated with decreased hemoglobin synthesis. We see this in such anemias as iron deficiency anemia, sideroblastic anemia, thalassemia, and lead poisoning. Now let's discuss macrocytes. Macrocytes mean abnormally large erythrocytes, cells that are actually larger than 8.2 microns. As we can see from this picture, that most of these cells are greater than 8.2 microns when you measure them with the lymphocyte. Before reporting your macrocytosis, again, like for our normocytes and our microcytes, we want to count the number of macrocytic cells we see in 10 microscopic fields. And we want to use evenly dispersed red blood cells in our oil immersion 100x power. You get the total, divide the total by 10. If you have less than 10 large cells, you would call them normocytes. If you have 10 to 20, you would call it 1 plus macrocytic cells. 20 to 30 large cells would be 2 plus. Greater than 30 again is 3 plus. Once we see what we have on our slide, we can check with our MCV. Marked macrocytosis, or 3 plus, would be greater than 120 femtoliters. Moderate macrocytosis would be somewhere between 109 and 120. That would be 2 plus. Slight macrocytosis is going to be anywhere between 96 and 108 MCV. That would be 1 plus. Macrocytosis is mainly associated with megaloblastic anemias and liver disease. Here we can see the comparison of normocytes. The first square, you can see in the right-hand corner, has an MCV of 91. The second square in the upper right-hand corner is an MCV of 108, which would give us a 1 plus macrocytosis. In the lower left-hand corner, we see that the MCV is 66, and if we notice, that would give us a 2 plus microcytosis. And in the lower right-hand corner, we see that the MCV is 63, which would give us a 3 plus microcytosis.